Hello my fellow tamers, Veteran X here, and today we're going to discuss some helpful tips and tricks you can use throughout your adventures of Temtem. So whether you're fresh to Temtem or have over 4,000 hours clocked in the game, there will be something here within this guide for everyone to utilize. Okay, I've dragged out this YouTuber intro long enough, let's get right into it. The first item that we'll tackle is the importance of switching out your Tems within key moments of a battle. This is also known as pivoting for my big brains out there. Throughout your journey of the Airborne Archipelago, you will encounter many tamers who are ready to kick your ass.
Buckle up, Teddy.
One crucial way to help take down tough tamers is to play 4D chess and pivot at the right moment in time. Let's say that your opponent has a nature Tem and an electric Tem on their side of the field, while you have a neutral Tem and a watertight Tem on your side of the field. In this specific situation, you can practically guarantee that your opponent is going to have both of their Tems attacking to your water Tem slot. This is because nature and electric Tems have a type advantage over water. So, how can you help prevent an almost certain death? By switching out, of course. But don't just randomly pick anyone. Be sure to choose a Tem that can take those hits without a problem. Pivoting is a technique that many seasoned players are very accustomed to. You can fake out your opponent with a well-timed pivot, or you can even prevent your opponent from switching out to push the odds in your favor. Take a gander at this clip in which I prevent my opponent from switching out. Cage, yeah baby, that Cyclops ain't switching out. Yeah, Ukama tried to switch, he tried to switch. I hit him with the cage, baby. Let's do it, get out of here. Yeah buddy, yeah you tried to switch out. Not gonna let you do that. In this situation, I have a few advantages over my opponent, so I deduce that he will definitely try to switch out. But hold on there, cowboy. To prevent my opponent from switching, I use the move Cage, which traps and stops a Tem from switching, and it has Ultra Instinct Priority. Priority basically boils down to who gets to attack first, and I'll explain more about it later in the video. Moving along, it turns out that I was correct in using Cage because my opponent tries to do a double swap on his Tems, and I make him pay for it dearly by securing the KO on his Cyclops. Remember, not all pivots will be as obvious as the examples that I have pointed out, so it's important to stay on your toes and seize any advantages that you may have. Speaking of advantageous situations, let's discuss the importance of type advantages and disadvantages. If you play other creature capturing games such as Pokemon or similar RPGs, then this is not a new concept for you. The difference here is that some advantages may not be as obvious at first glance. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, there are currently 12 different types within Temtem, so if we were to take a solid crystal type Tem and match them against an all-powerful electric type Tem, who would have the type advantage in this situation? If you guessed electric, then you'd be wrong. That's because crystal types actually have the advantage over electric types. A technique that helped me understand type advantages is to imagine how these elements will interact with each other in real life. Quartz crystals are really great conductors of electricity, so they would have no problem if they were struck by a sudden jolt of electricity. Therefore, they literally have a natural advantage over electricity, and this is accurately reflected within Temtem. Another good example of this comes from the toxic and wind types. If toxic fumes are trapped within a room, a good gust of pressurized wind can be used to blow away or purify the air of pollution. There are a lot of winning combinations when it comes to types, so don't feel overwhelmed if you don't know all of them at once. Sometimes I still keep a type chart handy from time to time, but don't tell anyone I said that. Okay, cool. Some other variables that can shift the tide of a battle are status conditions and buffs and debuffs. Unlike Pokemon, status conditions and buffs and debuffs do not magically stop working just because you switched out your Tem. Let me explain first with status conditions and then we'll discuss buffs and debuffs. Also, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to call buffs and debuffs gains from this point on, so be sure to keep that in mind. Moving right along, status conditions are not permanent within Temtem. Instead, they last a certain amount of turns and their effects are continuously applied, even if your Tem is currently not within the battle. There are currently 15 different status conditions within the game, and each one of them provides their own unique sets of advantages and disadvantages. For example, let's say you had a Tem that had 3 turns of poison. Even if you were to swap out that Tem, it would still receive toxic tick damage while in your party until the 3 turns of poison runs out. So, what are some ways to get rid of negative status conditions? Well, one way is to stack other status conditions on that Tem.
Nani?
Yep, that's right. A Tem can have up to 2 different status conditions at once. Also, status conditions are replaced by the FIFO method, which means it has a first in, first out flow. I know that this may sound like a lot, but once it's in practice, it makes for some really amazing gameplay within Temtem. You can even self-inflict status conditions by using your own Tems. You can also combine 2 positive status conditions to provide even more benefits to your team. Oh my goodness, Temtem has a lot of depth within it, and it's important to use your Tem's abilities to their fullest extent. And now a word from Veteran X. Hey, VetX here, and if you're liking the video so far, consider dropping a like, or hell, even subscribing if you want. I'll have a lot more content coming your way, and your support truly means the world to me. I also want to create video gaming content full time, so if you want to check out my Patreon, I will truly appreciate it. I have a link for it in the description, of course. Now, let's play some freaking video games. We can talk about status conditions for hours and hours, but for now, let's quickly discuss gains. Remember, gains is the term that I'm using for buffs and debuffs, so I don't drastically increase the word count of this guide. Anyway, gains are permanent and they do not go away, even if you were to swap out your Tem millions of times. This adds an entirely new layer to the gameplay because if your Tem has a certain amount of positive gains, they can easily sweep your opponents with no problem, even if you were to switch them out constantly. This concept also applies for negative gains, so be sure to plan out your moves accordingly, you mad lad. Next, let's chat about priority, holds, and stamina. Priority can be simply explained as speed modifiers for your Tem. Every technique within the game has priority assigned to them, and they can drastically alter which Tem is allowed to make a move first. All moves have their priority visibly displayed, so it will be easier for players to remember. Techniques with a very low priority will happen after all other techniques have been used. If multiple Tems use a very low priority technique, then they will go in the order of speed. Low priority means that the technique will occur at half the user speed. Normal means it will use the speed of the user. High priority will use 1.5 times the user speed. Very high will occur at 1.75 times the user speed. And finally, ultra priority will be used before any other techniques and before your opponent can swap out a Tem. Remember earlier in the video, this is how I was able to trap my opponent's Tems before he could make a double swap. It's all coming full circle, baby. Now, let's talk about holds on your techniques. A hold restricts the use of a technique until a certain amount of turns have passed. You can tell how long a hold time is for a technique by looking at the stripes on the move card. If it has no stripes, then it has a 0 hold. If it has 1 stripe, then it has 1 hold, and so on and so forth. It's so easy, a caveman can do it. I mean, no offense to all my cavemen out there. Please don't cancel me. Please. I have a dog to feed, okay? The hold system is a really good way to balance out really powerful techniques. Typically, super strong and OP techniques will have a higher hold time when compared to weaker techniques. Although this is not 100% the case, in those situations, a move's stamina will come into play to help balance out techniques. Instead of power points or PP like in Pokemon, Temtem uses stamina in order to determine how many times you can safely use your techniques. Every move has a stamina cost, and if you use more stamina than you have available, your Tem will become overexerted, which means it will take recoil damage and not be able to use the technique until its next turn. So please make sure you take care of your Tems and don't work them to death. Your Tems will also recover small amounts of its stamina pool every turn. There are several ways to recover your stamina within a battle. One way is to rest your Tems during your turn, or you can use traits, techniques, held items, or a combination of all to give you a boost in stamina. Or you can just simply let your Tem passively rest within your party. This next session can apply to anyone, and my tip here is don't be afraid to lose. Temtem offers a refreshing challenge within creature capturing games, and it feels so damn good to play it. And don't worry, you're going to face defeat a lot within this game. In fact, if you're watching this video, then there's a good chance that you probably lost your very first match against Max, depending on who your starter was. There are so many things you can learn from a defeat, such as counters against your team, you can recognize any misplays on your end, and so on and so much more. Defeats are a treasure trove of information, and they can allow you to become even better along your journey. Also, be sure to knock out as many side quests as possible. Many side quests offer unique rewards and gear items that will give you significant advantages within battles. Trust me, you do not want to skip side quests. Do it. Just do it. You can either complete them in huge batches or finish them up as you progress through the game, but just make sure that you do them. Another important thing is to take on dojo rematches as soon as you're able to. You get a huge amount of pansons, which is the currency within Temtem, and you get unique items called radars. Radars are devices that can give you a boosted chance to encounter Luma Temtem. Luma Tems are this game's take on shiny Pokemon. The difference here is that Luma Tems are guaranteed to have 3 maxed out single values, or SVs. Oh my goodness, that wraps up this guide for the most part. Now of course there were a few topics I didn't get to cover, like layers and breeding, but I feel like those advanced topics require a video on their own. But the biggest takeaway here is to have fun. Seriously, Temtem is an amazing game and you're going to have a blast with it. I freaking guarantee it. Especially if you love creature capture games such as Pokemon, you're going to enjoy the breath of fresh air that Temtem brings. And also it's a beautiful looking game. I mean, what the hell? This game runs smoothly at 60 FPS. I'm here to bring a new energy and positive vibe to Temtem, and I really hope that this guide helped you out in some way. Consider subscribing if you want more Temtem content from your friendly neighbor, Veteran X. And now, with all of that out of the way, get out there and let's go play some freaking video games and watch some anime.